Good morning, everyone. Ran off and forgot my water. I'll be right back. Hello. Real life today, you know. I'm the only one here. My wife is in Chicago. So there's a chance we have to end early if Thomas wakes up. He should not wake up, though. He's pretty good. So today we're going to be talking about a question that I asked all of you. I said, essentially, what do you all want to talk about? What are questions you have? And I got a lot of them back pertaining to variance, luck, etc., etc., etc. Now, I know all of the very, very strong players out there are like, oh, come on, we already know the answer to this. But listen, a lot of people don't. So many people said, I seem to make deep runs all the time, but then I just get unlucky. What should I do about this? Help me. What should I do? I keep getting unlucky. And the first thing you have to realize is that you are not unlucky. I know a lot of people are thinking, but yes, I am. Yes, I am unlucky. No, you're not. First things first. If you were born in this day of age with a smartphone or a computer, you are incredibly lucky. You have more computing power than almost anyone who's ever existed. You likely don't have to worry too much about things like shelter, like food, etc., etc. We're all pretty lucky. So we already won the genetic lottery, the time lottery, etc., etc. So now, can we get even luckier? Can we run even hotter? And I think a lot of people don't realize the game they are playing. They think poker is a game where you're supposed to win the poker tournament or you're supposed to have super consistent cash game winnings. But I hate to break it to you, that's not how this game works. And we're going to be showing you some graphs later to show that. So realize that things like luck matter a lot in the short run, but they matter almost none in the long run. So, what does that mean? That means essentially, if you get to the long run, you will get the results you deserve. Now, if you all know me, I do not use the term deserve very often at all because I don't think you deserve a whole lot. But when you do actually put in the volume, actually put in the work, you will get the results you deserve. What is the long term, says Joey Bones? 5 years, 10 years? Well, you're already thinking in the wrong time frame. What time frame should we be thinking in, everyone? Take a second. Does time actually matter? Does hours and minutes actually matter? While you're all thinking about that, I'm having a giveaway. I'm giving away 1% of my Party Poker UK action. They have a few $10,000 tournaments, maybe a $25K that I'll play. The last few have been extraordinarily tough. And then I think there's a 5K and there's a 2K and a 1K. Anyway, I'm giving away 1% of my action to one of you. So you can enter that giveaway at pokercoaching.com/giveaway. Michael, again, how much volume should I play in a month? Again, none of that matters. What matters is how many games do you play? Like per month doesn't matter. Some of you are saying a lifetime. No, you don't need a lifetime. You don't need a lifetime. You all are thinking in the incorrect frame of time. You need to be thinking in the frame of events. And in poker tournaments, that is, if you think about the big block, tournaments, think about the small block, hands. When you play cash games, some people think in terms of the big blocks, sessions, or you can think in terms of the small blocks, hands, right? And how you fare on any individual hand is just completely irrelevant. But how you fare in sessions becomes a little bit more relevant, and how you fare over large numbers of sessions becomes very, 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 very relevant. So, realize that 5 years doesn't matter if you play one individual tournament per year, right? Say you go and play the World Series of Poker main event one time a year, and that's your only poker experience. Is that a big sample? No. What if you play a week or once a week for 5 years? It's 250 tournaments. Is that a big sample? No. If you play 20 tournaments a day, every day, for 5 years, absolutely yes. Let's get out the calculator real quick. Make sure I can do math. 20 tournaments, like good online players do, times 52 weeks a year. No, I'm sorry. 20 tournaments times, let's say they play 350 days a year. 7,000 tournaments we're at so far. 7,000 a year times 5 years. That is 35,000 tournaments. 35,000 tournaments, good amount of volume. You will know over that period if you are a good player or a bad player. Definitively. You won your second bracelet event this week in Nevada. Congrats. Good job, good work. Do you run multiple times when you're ahead to minimize tilt? No, don't go on tilt. Why would you go on tilt if you lose hands? We just said losing hands doesn't matter. Don't focus on the things that do not matter. It's very important. As Dr. Maya says, the fewer hands you play, the more variance matters. Well, at least the more that you feel its impact, right? I mean, think about this, right? Say I play a year, and then another player plays a year, and I play a tournament a day, and the other person plays a tournament a week. Who is most likely to have a losing year? Well, it's going to be the person who doesn't play very much volume, right? But again, like, doesn't matter if you have a losing year. Why does a year matter? Because the government told you that is a good time frame? Because that's how long it takes the sun to go around the earth? Think about it. Like, why does that actually matter? It doesn't. It is like a fictional concept that people put in their heads to give themselves either like security or structure or something like that. So, we're going to talk about poker tournaments today. But what is a good indicator for a number of hands? You say 4,000 hours in cash. Again, how many hands do you play an hour, right? Come on, everyone. If you are thinking in terms of time, you're already screwing up. Because time, I'm not going to say it's completely fictional, but it's kind of fictional. 4,000 hours, let's say you play 25 hands an hour of live poker, it's 100,000 hands. Good solid amount of hands. Now, you can still break even over 100,000 hands, but good solid amount. So, what I want to do today is I'm going to show everyone, well, I guess who's not on Instagram, because I can't show it to you, some graphs. These are going to be graphs of tournament players' results. So, what we have here is someone who has a 50% return on investment over 100 games. If you play a tournament a week, it's about 2 years of poker. Okay? Take a look at this graph, right? You see, this player essentially lost for the first year. And this is someone with a 50% return on investment, like a good player. So that's really good, right? That's not bad, that's really good. So if someone is really good and they're just going to lose over the course of a year, that's like, recognize this, right? That is normal. It's not abnormal, it's normal. And then if you take a look at this graph, they actually only have one big score and then, a few meaningful scores that are relevant. But you see only one gigantic score in the course of 100 games. Now, these tournaments that I'm running are, that I'm simulating are 1,000-person tournaments where 15% of the field gets paid. Okay? 1,000-person tournaments, 15% of the field gets paid. We're going to talk about ways to reduce variance in a little bit, because that's actually really important. But that is what a lot of people play, especially when they're playing like online, right? And especially if they're playing live tournaments where they play once a week. They play the giant $400 tournament every weekend at their big local casino. Did I say play 20 tournaments a week or 20 tournaments a day? 20 tournaments a day. If you play online poker and you are serious about the game, you need to be putting in substantial volume. And even then, 20 is not even a whole lot. Back when I used to play sit and goes, I'd play about 100 per day. And that's kind of a lot, don't get me wrong. But that's that. Okay. So, this is a nice solid result. Notice these are $1,000 buy-in tournaments, by the way. So players supposed to be up about $50,000 over 100 games. Turns out that's right at what he's up. Okay, fine. Let's run that 10 times. We're going to run the same sample 10 times, okay? 50% ROI player over 100 games, 1,000-person tournaments. Take a look at this if you're watching this, and you'll see that the results are completely all over the place, right? You'll see this random sample. 5 times out of 10, 5 times out of 10, the player is either break even or down. That means if you play one tournament a week with a 50% ROI, and you do this for 20 years, in half of those years, you should expect to be down. Okay? How does that make a lot of people feel? It makes a lot of people feel very, very, very uneasy. They start to lose their mind. They start to like get uneasy, right? How do you play 20 tournaments a day? You play about 8 of them at a time. Play many, many games at a time to get in volume. We're going to discuss volume in a minute because, well, over 100 games, you see the results are all over the place. But over 1,000 games, results start to even out. Over 1,000 games, literally no one in this sample was down money. 50% ROI player over 1,000 games playing 1,000-person tournaments. No one was down money in that time frame, which means volume will inevitably give you the result you deserve, which is 50% ROI. Notice all these players should, quote unquote, be up $500,000 over the course of 1,000 games. You see, though, that there are players who are up only 200K, and there are some players who are up, whoa, what's happening? And there's some players who are up $1 million. So you see, even then, the results are spread all over the place, right? Next, 10,000 games. 10,000 games. This actually is a lifetime. But let's get out the calculator. Let's say you play one tournament a week, okay? 10,000 games divided by 52 weeks a year. This is 200 years of poker play. 192 years of poker play, okay? If you play one tournament a week. If you play 3 tournaments a week, 60 years of poker play. Is there no way Instagram can see? Nope. Sorry, Instagram. You need to be watching this on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, or anywhere else. If you're listening to this on audio podcast, sorry. Go back and watch the video. Anyway, trust me on this. Over 10,000 games, which is, a big sample, you just don't lose. It's impossible to lose. In this instance, the lowest winner won only about $3.5 million, right? Biggest winner won about $7 million. So even then, there's still variance, right? Variance exists, even over the long term, but everybody's winning. Some people get 70% ROI, some people get 30% ROI. But if you're a 50% ROI player, you see as you play more and more volume, that fixes variance. Now, that's all fine and good. What about if you're a losing player, though? Because a lot of people like to think they're winning poker players. But in reality, almost everyone loses the rake plus a little bit. So, take a look at this, right? This is the results of a losing player over 100 games. Minus 25% ROI, just a tiny loser, right? They lose 15% rake and a little bit more. They're not world class. They don't study all the time. They've not devoted their life to the game. These actually are the people who show up and play one day a week and hope to win the poker tournament. These players lose almost every time. As you see, we run the sample 100 games 10 times. 2 out of the 10 are up. One of them's actually up a lot. One of them's up $100,000 or something when they win a big tournament. You still get to win every once in a while if you're bad. But you see, most of the players are losing. Over 1,000 games, they almost all lose. Even then, still one guy who's super lucky gets a $250K profit. And then over 10,000 games, well, they literally all lose and their money goes right into the dumpster. Okay? So as we see right here, this is very, very, very clear that volume will help you immensely with variance, okay? So putting in volume will help you get through variance. And that is the easiest way to not feel the pains of volume. So if you care about being up or down over the course of some short time frame, like a year, make sure you play games that have low variance. You may say, I thought poker had lots of variance. Well, some forms of it does and some forms of it does not. For example, like we mentioned, when I used to play sit and goes, I'd play about 100 a day, every day, 3,000 a month, and I did not have a losing month over the course of 3 years. And that was with small ROI, like 10% return on investment, right? So, if you can find games that are low variance, like 10-person tournaments where you cash 30% of the time instead of 15% of the time, and you don't have big outlier scores, you start to get your results, or you get the results you deserve very, very quickly, right? Again, though, this is actually not so good for a lot of people because the results they deserve are bad. If you deserve bad results because you don't devote your life to the game, you're just gambling. It doesn't matter what you do. Your bankroll is always going to go in the downward direction, which is awful, right? I mean, again, you can still win sometimes. We saw even the player with minus 25% ROI win sometimes, but if you're not good at poker, you're going to lose, which is... It helps to bring a... Well, we'll get to that point in a minute because there are things you can do to ensure you're not a losing player. But the next thing you can do is play in events with a smaller field size, okay? If you're playing 1,000-person tournaments, how often are you going to win that 1,000-person tournament if you're break even? Well, roughly 1 in 1,000 games, right? So how often are you going to make the final table? Once out of 100 games. That means if you play for a year... if you play once a week for 2 years, you should final table once. Final table. You should final table once, right? So if you final table once over the course of 2 years playing once a week, are you cool with that? Are you cool with not having a big score except for once every 2 years? A lot of people aren't. So what can you do to fix that? Well, play 100-person tournaments where you're going to have a final table once out of every 10 times. Now, obviously, you get paid back less whenever you win a 100-person tournament compared to a 1,000-person tournament, but variance gets significantly decreased. Nobody knows what their ROI is, says Locke. Well, first off, you're never going to know what your ROI is, and your ROI fluctuates from event to event, or from cash game to cash game, or from seat in a specific game to seat in a specific game. And it's very important that you figure out how to make sure you're playing in advantageous scenarios. If you just, like, say I decide I'm going to go play poker on Thursday, and I find the closest tournament to me on Thursday, and I go and I play it, or I find the closest 2-5 no limit game on Thursday and go play it, it's completely random, right? You want to make sure you are playing in soft games, because soft games will give you a higher return on investment across the board, right? Like, say you go to a casino, and there are two options. You can play a 2-5 game where everyone's taking the game super seriously, wearing a headphones and hoodie, no one's talking to each other, it's just everyone doing their absolute best to squeak out a tiny edge. You want to play in that game, or do you want to play in a game where everyone's throwing the party, they're all drunk, and they all have 5,000 big blinds in front of them? Clearly, you'd rather the 5,000 big blind party, right? Yet, a lot of people don't do that. They instead just take the first seat that comes open and don't ever change, and that's a gigantic mistake. So, for tournaments, the way you decrease variance is by playing smaller field sizes. The inverse of this is people who play satellites. If you really want to jack variance up through the roof, play satellites, because when you play a satellite, you're 1 in, let's say, 8 if you're good to cash in a satellite, and then you're 1 in 8 to cash in the main tournament. So you're 1 in 64-ish to actually get any money back. So you're 1 in 64 to even get a min cash, and then to get a big score, depending on the field, let's say it's a 1,000-person tournament, right? You need to take the final table. Well, let's say you're 1 in 100, so you're 1 in 100 times 1 in. Let's say you're 1 in 100 times 1 in 8. So 1 in 800 to get a real score. 1 in 800. So if you play a satellite a week and then get into the tournament, whenever you do, you're 1 in 800 to get a big score. That means it'll take you 16 years on average to get a good cash. Right? That's not so good. What about variance in cash games? Well, variance in cash games is going to be a little bit less because you don't play significant pots in cash games. You may say, oh, I get all in for 100 big blinds and 300 big blinds all the time. It's not significant. It's just not. Because in a tournament, you actually only get to play, well, let's say you do play a tournament every single day for a year. You may only actually get to play a giant all-in for, 100 starting stacks or for 30 starting stacks, once every week? So you only get to play 52 big pots a year, right? So if you get to play 52 big pots a year, clearly you need to win those pots, right? There's a lot of variance involved in that. So tournaments have more variance than cash games, also because you just don't get cashed out in tournaments very often, right? So in cash games, there is variance. I did not prepare any graphs for that. But realize there's still a lot of swings. There are good cash game players online who have graphs of 100,000 hands where they break even. Now, there's a big difference. There are a few big differences in online to live. First, online, you can get in that volume quicker, right? We determined earlier 4,000 hours of online a live play is about 100,000 hands. So how many hours is that per 4,000 hours divided by what? 365. That is 11 hours a day. So if you play 11 hours a day, all day, every day, which nobody does, but if you do that in live poker, that's about 100,000 hands a year. So good players online with a relatively small edge, they can break even over that stretch. Now, the problem is that essentially in live poker, a few things are different. First, the players are often just way worse. So potential win rates are way higher, right? Next, rake is usually a lot higher in live poker. And you may say, but you play more hands online, so the rake adds up more. Well, we're not talking about in terms of hours or months. We're talking about in terms of hands, right? So the rake live poker over 100,000 hands is going to be substantially more than the rake online. So if you're a very good live player, you can actually have a pretty great win rate. 10 big blinds per 100 hands, maybe 30 big blinds per 100 hands. Whereas online, you may have something like 5 big blinds per 100 hands. 1/6 the win rate of a good live player. Which means if you're really good in live poker, you actually will experience relatively few swings. Remember when I used to play 5-10 at Bellagio, I would buy roughly, I'd play roughly 10 hours a day every day. I said no one plays 11 hours a day every day. Some people do. So I play roughly 10 hours a day every day. No breaks, because, we're trying to make money. And I did not have a losing month. I had 2 months where I roughly broke even over the course of 2 years. Every other month was profitable for at least like 5K. Most months, average month was about 25K. Some months were like 50. Some months were closer to 0. But that's just, variance, right? And that's playing like almost exclusively 5-10. Sometimes I play a little bit of 10-20. Sometimes I play 2-5. Usually I wouldn't play 2-5 though. That does not include any like outlier events. Every once in a while I play like 200-400. And, I did not include that in those results. So that's, if you're good, you can have a nice win rate. But again, most people aren't good. Remember, on average, people lose, right? Because the casino takes a rake. Think about how much rake a casino takes, actually. Let's say your casino takes $5 per hand times 25 hands per hour. It's $125 per hour coming off the table. May not sound like a lot, but it actually is. Because if a really good player, I just told you, can win about 10 big blinds per hour, they're winning at 2.5 times faster than the best player at the table. Casino's crushing you. So, don't forget to account for the rake. Rake exists. All right. I see all of you have asked a million questions, most of them tangential. Talk about the rake, the variance in PLO. I believe, I'm wrong, I could be wrong about this, I'm not a PLO pro. It's thought to be about 4 times the variance of no limit hold'em. Henderson says, thank you for your work. You bettered your life more than you can imagine. Well, you're very lucky. What do you think about selling action? Selling action is a way to reduce variance, especially if you can sell at a markup, right? My poker coaching coach, Alex Fitzgerald, he has a video somewhere on YouTube on selling action and decreasing variance. And it just goes through like the math of if you sell at like 1.2 and then play the tournament. Say you sell like 50% at 1.2 and then still play the tournament. It just makes it much, much harder to lose. And it's true, right? If you can sell at a markup, it does make it much, much harder to lose, which is why you do see some people who have plenty of money selling action because they would just prefer to have no swings, right? Then some of you are saying, buy action on UStake. I have no affiliation with UStake, and I probably never will after this. But essentially, there are a few problems with places like UStake. Assuming people are trying to sell a lot of action there. Take a second and try to figure it out. Why would someone try to sell a lot of action through a site that charges a VIG? Think about it. Why would they do that? There's really only one good answer. There is a good answer for someone, like, say, Jonathan Little wanted to go and sell 2% of himself, $10 at a time, to a $100,000 package, just to, like, give all of you a sweat. That's different. I get that. But why would Jonathan Little go and sell $50,000 worth of action for $100,000 worth of tournaments? I can't think of a whole lot of answers. Only one. And that's that Jonathan Little's not good enough to sell action himself. Which means that player probably is not all that good. If you cannot sell... so look, I'll tell you what I do. Whenever I need to play a high-stakes tournament, 25K, sometimes I'll sell action for 10K, I have a few people, I'll send a text message, and they don't even have to say booked. They just confirm it is booked. And what does that imply? That implies they trust my skills based on my past history. And a lot of good pros have the same deal, right? They have people who completely trust them to play good games, right? I mean, a good example of this is there was a $25,000 tournament in Bahamas just the other day, and I showed up, I was ready to play, looked at the field and didn't play. And that kind of thing actually makes investors comfortable with you because they know you're not just blasting it in there for no reason, right? And the thing is, we already predetermined markups for a lot of these events, and I'm not selling the action, which implies I protect the investor's money, right? And that makes investors want to invest with you because you're not just taking their money and lighting it on fire. So anyway, if people are selling on the very public sites and they're trying to sell a lot of money, it's usually because they cannot sell it otherwise. Okay? So if they can't sell it otherwise, that presumes they're either really bad at networking, nobody likes them, right? If nobody likes them, they'll have a hard time selling action because if people don't like you, then they're not going to deal with you. Or they're not all that good. They just think they're good. Maybe they're one of the players who's actually a losing player who had okay results, etc., etc. Phil Helmuth sells action on UStake. Yeah, he's an investor. I'm all for owning the UStake site. I think that's a great idea. Because every time people buy action on UStake, UStake takes a little bit of money. It's like a casino, right? Owning the casino would be great. Can you provide a definition for vig? Vig is the rake. Vigorish. Vigorish comes from, I think, horse betting? Don't exactly know. Pretty sure it comes from horse betting, though. It's the amount of money that the house takes off the top. All right. So, increase volume. I know a lot of you don't want to do that because nobody wants to put in volume. Play smaller field games. Very, very important. You get to pick which games you play. You don't have to play the tournament that has 10,000 players, right? Everyone loves to try to play the games where you can get rich, right? Tournament poker looks like a great way to get rich because you see some people who, every tournament, someone shows up, they put down their $400 and they turn it into $400K by winning some gigantic tournaments. And that looks sexy, right? Essentially, they're thinking this game's easy because someone did it. Just because someone did it doesn't mean that it is likely or probable or repeatable, any of those things. Obviously, it's always repeatable because you could just get struck by lightning twice, but it doesn't happen all that often, right? So realize that very often, essentially always, poker is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a great way to get rich slowly, but a really bad way to get rich quick. And if you look at all the best players in the world, they didn't just start playing last year, right? Essentially, no one's playing high roller tournaments who started last year. And if they are, they're usually rich from other things. And, again, there are success stories. Every year or two, there's someone else who pops up. Usually a young person who's been playing poker since they were 12. It looks like an overnight success story, but it's not. Why would you not play the 25K? Because I did not expect to have a substantial edge. I play poker to make money. I do not play poker for the experience or to socialize. I play poker to make money. And if, let's say, I'm going to go play a $25,000 tournament, and I think I'm going to have 5% ROI, that's $1,250. Is it worth it to me to have substantially bigger swings to my bankroll, even if I can sell action and play it like a 10K or whatever? Is it worth it for me to sell a substantial, or is it worth it for me to first off have to deal with that? And it is even a little bit of hassle given my super easy setup. Am I willing to invest $25K for $1,250 profit? Say you sell half your action, now I'm only making $625. Believe it or not, I have a pretty good setup in life where I can sit here and talk to all of you. Some of all of you are going to turn around and sign up to my poker coaching site, pokercoaching.com, and I'm going to make some money from that, right? With no variance. And essentially the answer is I have other options to make money beyond sit there and try to grind out a tiny win rate. Just don't need it in my life. And, even then, for Jonathan Little personally, sure, winning a $25K every once in a while, even if it is with a 5% ROI, is valuable. But, in terms of marketing, but it's silly. It's silly. A lot of people have it in their minds that they have to play as big as they possibly can all the time, otherwise they're not doing it right. And I hate to break it to you, that's just wrong. Many of the biggest winners in the game do not play high roller tournaments because they really don't want to go broke. It's important to not go broke. Okay, so increase volume, play smaller field games. Number 3, perhaps most importantly, and really one of them that you have the most control over, is to make sure you play with a larger edge. You need to have a large edge. If you have a large edge and you want to see your graph go up consistently over the long term, play with a big edge. So how do you play with a big edge? Well, without even studying poker, first thing you can do is have good game selection. Great example of this. One time I was in LA for the LAPC, and they had a $5,000 buy-in tournament right before the main event. I go there, I show up, I look at it. It's only 60 people, and it is 57 of the best players in the world, and 3 not-so-good players. Okay, let's do a little bit of math. Let's suppose those not-so-good players are going to lose minus 50% ROI. They're just going to get crushed. So they're going to lose $2,500 each, divided by the 57 good players. Each good player is going to make $44 in that tournament. Do you want to go sit there all day for $44? No, I don't. And that's not even counting for rake, right? So everyone's going to lose. Obviously, some people are better than others, etc., etc. So I went there, I looked at the tournament. It didn't look good. So I walked downstairs to the cash game, and there was a 25-50 game running that had 6 bad players and 2 good players. So I took a seat, won about, what did I win? I think I won $15K that day. Just sitting there in the softest game I've ever played because there were no pros there. They all had ego problems. They were playing this tournament because the tournament existed. They did not game select properly, and they all made $40 minus the $300 rake, so they lost $250, whereas I got to play in a very, very soft 25-50 game, right? And that's just straight up understanding how you compare to other players in the field. And to be fair, if someone is very, very strong, very, very good, you're not going to have much of an edge over them, right? Styrofoam Cup says, what about Stephen Chidwick? He's been tearing up everything he plays. Well, he's one of the best players in the world, but also, he's running hot. They asked Justin Bonomo after he won the $1 million buy-in tournament, what are you doing this year that's made you win every tournament? Because he had the sickest year anyone's ever had. He's like, well, I won all my all-ins. He won his flips, right? He gets it. He's played a lot of volume. We used to play sit and goes together all the time. We both printed our $25,000 a month playing sit and goes back in the day, and he gets the idea of variance and volume. So, recognize that. Next, table selection. You may say, well, you don't get to pick your table in tournaments, but you kind of do. For example, you get to pick when you register. You want to register when the satellite players are registering, because satellite players are typically worse at tournaments than tournament players. So, that's usually the day before the tournament. You want to register when those people are registering because you're more likely to be sat at their tables in most scenarios. Next, say you're playing in a tournament and you're at a table that's not very good. But the day's going to end in 3 hours and you can just sit there, play kind of tightly, and then get a redraw at a table that will presumably be softer because you've scoped out the rest of the field and you know that the field on average is much softer than your table. So don't bust in the next 3 hours. I'm not saying don't just sit there and be a super nit, but I'm saying don't give away your money, right? I remember at Borgata a few years ago, I was at a table that was me and the 9 other best players in the field. And every other table is like a bunch of people I've never seen. Like 9 other tables. And these 3 kids at my table were just like going off. They were going nuts. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Sit here and be a nit. Go to the next day with roughly the same chip stack and get a redraw with all the bad players. So that's what I did, and I made a deep run. I think I took like 20th or something. Whereas 3 of those guys ended up battling. Sure, one of them got chips, but the other 2 went broke, and like, why? What? There's no edge, right? If there's no edge, you want to play pretty nitty poker, especially if you know you can just hang out and then get to play with an edge in the future. Seat selection. Can't really seat select in tournaments so easily. There are a few things you can do, but they're beyond the scope of this video. In cash games, though, you can definitely seat select, right? We already alluded to the fact that in cash games, say there are 2 tables, or even a table and there are various seats at the table, always pick the seat that is most advantageous for you. Usually that's going to be having the bad players on your right. Sometimes it's fine if they're on the left, but you want to be near the bad players because you get to play more pots with the people who are close to you. And you especially get to play more pots with the people on your right because you get to pick when you enter the pot, after they enter the pot, right? So those are ways you can increase your edge without even like doing anything hard. It's just a matter of discipline, right? Next is you can study. You can actually get better at poker. What a novel idea, huh? So if you work hard to improve your skills, your win rate will go up. I get an email every few days. Someone says, I joined poker coaching and I think I'm getting better, but my results have been worse over the last 3 days. What's going on? Well, realize 3 days is irrelevant. And also realize that, you'll get a little bit better. And maybe you are getting better. Who knows? But it's important to realize that variance matters. Understand that, right? It's very, very, very important. So work hard on your game consistently over the long run and improve your skills. And if you improve your skills, you will have a higher return on investment. If you have a higher return on investment, in cash games or in tournaments, right? You will experience way fewer downswings because the average trickle of your graph will be up. And if it trickles up as opposed to trickling down, you're going to win. Really as simple as that. So increase volume. You can do that by just playing more, right? You can play in smaller field games. And then you can increase your edge by seat selecting or table selecting, game selecting, seat selecting better, right? All right, let's see. So here's an idea of you should invest more money when you have a bigger edge. And that does exist. I'm not even going to say that's necessarily more sophisticated or anything like that, but realize, a good example of this is I used to go sit and play 5, 10, and 10, 20 at Bellagio every day. Every once in a while, that 200, 400 game would go. Usually when there were 2 or 3 bad players who showed up and wanted to gamble big, I'd be in that game every time. Didn't happen very often, once every 5 months or something. But I expected to have a big edge. Maybe even just like the same edge that I would have in my normal game. But I was comfortable enough bankroll-wise to be willing to take the shot. Again, that goes back to the idea of you don't necessarily have to play as big as you are properly bankrolled for, right? What are my thoughts on add-ons in tournaments? If the add-on gives you a value, so say you buy in and let's say they give you like 10,000 chips. If you add on, they give you like 15,000. You should probably be taking that. Otherwise, it's not that big of a deal one way or the other. Presumably, if you're skilled, the chips you get to your stack are worth more than the chips the bad players get to their stack. But at the same time, so the add-on's not very useful if you have a big stack, but the add-on is quite useful if you have a tiny stack. It's essentially what it amounts to. If you have a big stack already, getting an extra 5% increase to your stack's not that big of a deal. If you have, if the increase is like 1,000%, then it's very, very relevant. Let's see. Kevin says, example of an edge. Win Encore Saturday tournament. $225 buy-in. Softest tournament you've ever seen. Yep. Softest tournament you've ever seen. So get in there and play it. How do you know your ROI? A lot of people will have this question. So essentially, you need to realize that you probably don't have the adequate bankroll or the adequate results to know your ROI anywhere near definitively. And I want to make it clear, you will never definitively know your ROI. And also realize, like I said, your ROI will vary game to game. For example, that tough $5,000 tournament at LAPC I mentioned, ROIs are all going to be negative. But in the main event, a tournament twice the size, which in theory should be tougher, is going to be way, way, way softer. Because it's the main event, people satellite in, etc., etc. So in that event, you may have 40% ROI. So in one game, you may have minus 5% ROI. In another game, you may have 40% ROI, which again goes back to the importance of game selection, right? If you consistently play cash games during non-peak hours, when it's all like hardcore grinders or players who are just not all that bad, your win rate's going to be less than if you play in peak hours against people who can't see their cards and can't read the board, right? So you want to make sure that realize your ROI is very relevant, but you will very rarely specifically know it. So you instead just need to make sure you are investing in games where you're making money. As Rounder says, if you can't spot the sucker at the table, it's you, right? If you show up to a table and everybody's playing well, it means you're probably going to be break even or losing. And if one player's playing bad, well, realize the other 9 players at the table are chopping up that one player. So you're going to win 1/10 of that player's money on average. I know that's really rough, but like on average. So 1/10 of that guy's money. Is that even worth your time? Essentially, you need multiple bad players at a table, or you need to be playing super high stakes to make it worth playing for the most part, assuming you have other things you can do in life, like take a nap, right? I mean, a good example of this is, say you're playing 2-5 no limit, and there's one bad player with $500 in front of him. You and the other few players are going to stack that guy eventually. He's probably going to get up and leave. So that means that you are going to win 1/10 or 1/9 of $500, which is like $55. So you're going to win $55. Question is, how long does that take you to get it? It may take you 4 hours. Because, I mean, think about it, right? How often do people get stacked? Not all that often. So if it takes you 4 hours to get $55 on average, that's whopping $12 an hour, right? Say instead there are 4 of those players who are going to lose $500 over 4 hours. And there's only 6 good players at the table, or 5 good players at the table. You see now your win rate's going to just like go through the roof, right? Can't even do the math off the top of my head, it's so much. Let's see. $2,000 divided by 5 players. That's $400 in 4 hours. Now you're making $100 an hour just by having a higher composition of bad player to good player, right? And that's why that's very, very important. You have both of my books. I have 14 books back there. Which should you read, the red or the green? If you're referring to the 2 tournament books over here, read the green one first. You're going to find with most books, you should start with volume 1 before you start with volume 2. You're terrible for playing with the old people. They just want to give you their money. Good. Find games that are soft, right? It's very important to find games that are soft. So yeah, before we wrap it up today, before I forget, I am giving away 1% of my entire action at the Party Poker UK coming up in about 2 weeks. I'm going to be going to Nottingham. They have a $5 million guaranteed main event, $10,000 buy-in. There's another $10,000 side event that should be pretty good. There's a $5,000 event that should be pretty good. There's a 2K. There's a 1K that'll be super soft. And I'm giving away 1% of that action to all of you. Completely for free. All you have to do is win the giveaway. So check that out at pokercoaching.com/giveaway. And in addition to that, I'm giving what am I giving? It's either 6 months or a year to Poker Coaching Premium. If you have not checked out Poker Coaching Premium, I know a lot of you are already members. That is where you need to go to learn everything you need to know to beat the Texas Hold'em, the no-limit version of Texas Hold'em game of your choice, whether it be satellites or cash games, tournaments, etc. You'll find what you need there to help you crush the games. So check it out at pokercoaching.com/premium to get in the giveaway, pokercoaching.com/giveaway. What's the best way to get started if you're a beginner? I have a video on YouTube. It's Jonathan Little playing first poker tournament. Search that. Jonathan Little playing first poker tournament. That'll give you the rules and all of that so that you have a decent chance to succeed the first time you play. You've been playing cash games when the party people leave the clubs. Yeah, exactly. You're going to find that playing late at night is really, 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 really good. What event has the best poker dealers? A lot of poker dealers are good in the high stakes circuit nowadays. Where do you like, which event are you not going to miss ever? It's tough to say because they all decline over time. I thought back in the day I would never miss a Bellagio tournament. But it declined, right? Now they only have the one good tournament in December. And even then I'm missing it, right? Because I have kids, right? There are unforeseen things in life that will make it to where you may miss everything. I mean, I never thought I'd miss the World Series of Poker, but this last year I think I skipped half of it because the schedule in the middle was mostly mixed games or tiny no-limit hold'em tournaments, and I don't play a ton of mixed games, and I don't want to play tiny no-limit hold'em tournaments. So, skipped half of it. It wasn't worth the time, right? So, you can never say I'm never going to skip that tournament. Currently, my favorite stop is the Party Poker event in the Bahamas. It's amazing. The venue's great. The tournaments are great, and I will not miss that for the foreseeable future. Thus, on Survivor tournaments, those are satellites. Except you get to cash out. If there's a tournament with a soft player if there's a multi-table tournament that the player is soft and weak, but the structure is bad, should you enter it? Depends on how bad the structure is, but usually if you have an edge, you'll have an edge in most scenarios. Tips for a bankroll challenge. Are you kidding me? Have you not been watching this? If you want to grow your bankroll and ensure you don't go broke, play a lot of volume with a giant bankroll. Read jonathanlittlepoker.com/bankroll and play a ton. If you play a ton, you cannot lose. If you play with 10 buy-ins in your bankroll, you're probably going to lose. Oh my goodness. Have you ever had a poker mentor? Yes. Or have you studied on your own? No. Poker is not an individual game. It may look like an individual game, but this is a team game where you need to find people to help you along your way. Throughout my entire career, I have had people who I've learned from, and I would definitely not be where I am today without them. I mean, I have paid something like $25,000 over the course of my life for private coaching, and I wish I had actually paid more. I wish I had spent more time on private coaching because it's highly valuable. The ability for someone to take their knowledge from the years of experience they have and hand it to you for some amount of money is highly valuable, especially in a game where you can make substantial money, right? It's not like we're playing a game like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering where if you're great, you can make $20 an hour. We're playing a game where you can make hundreds of dollars an hour. So think about that, right? If you could pay someone $5,000 to help you make an additional 5% ROI, would you do it? Well, the answer is obviously yes if you're going to play, because it pays itself off immediately. That's exactly the situation I had with my first, well, I guess this applied more like my third poker coach. I was playing sit and goes, and I was kind of struggling at one point, and I paid a good sit and go player $5,000 for 10 hours of private coaching, $500 an hour, and my return on investment went up a few percent. I paid that off in about a month, and then I continued grinding out that edge over the next few years before Party Poker closed up to Americans back in the day. So anyway, private coaching is well worth it, and that is an easy way to get a mentor who is solely focused on helping you. Technically, if your edge is large enough, isn't your risk of ruin close to zero? In theory, if your edge is large enough, sure. But most people's edges are not large enough. Most people's edges are nowhere near large enough. I mean, for example, a good example, this is the cash games I used to play, right? I think my biggest downswing was 3,000 big blinds. It's like 30K at 510. And that happened twice, I think, over 2 years. So, relatively small. That was with 30 big blind per 100-hour win rate. 30 big blind per 100-hand win rate. So, 10 big blinds per hour. So, maybe 30-ish buy-ins is what you need for that. If your win rate is 5 times that, I mean, you probably need like 3 buy-ins or something. But even then, you don't need like 1 buy-in because, well, unless your bonus is literally folding every hand, right? Whenever you get it all in, you're not going to have 100% equity. So you're going to lose sometimes. You're sorry you just joined. Well, if you're sorry you just joined, I pack it up and go somewhere else, I guess. Don't be sorry for joining. If you're sorry that you're late, such is life. Go back and watch the replay. I think I've heard in the past you say you don't like private coach others. Is that true? No, I have private students. I would rather do things like this, personally, that scale very well, right? Because, like today, we're helping however many of you all there are here, as opposed to helping one person at a time. That said, I do have private students. I have, 20 active private students who I talk to on a somewhat regular basis. How much do I charge for coaching? $500 per hour. If you want to sign up, support@pokercoaching.com. You think you've heard something about me writing a new excelling at No Limit Hold'em. Is that true or just a rumor? Oh, no, it's true. It's almost done. I'm in the editing process now. It will be done at the World Series of Poker. You think PLO destroys No Limit Hold'em players' lives. Sorry, they build their bankroll, then go broke in PLO. Well, Henderson, why in the world would someone be short-sighted and ignorant enough to think that because they are good at No Limit Hold'em that they should play PLO? Why would they think they even need to play PLO? Why? That's like saying alcohol ruins people's lives. Realize, though, you didn't crave alcohol before you had it. Right? Right? Cocaine ruins people's lives. I mean, I've never done cocaine. I've never felt a desire to. And cocaine will not ruin my life. Unless I start doing cocaine, which I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do. So, it's kind of like PLO. How can you say PLO ruins someone's lives? Really, it's the person lacking discipline and lacking self-control and falling for the allure of marketing that has ruined their lives. Right? Because I'll tell you what happens, right? And everything that ruins people's lives, like drugs, like gambling, like whatever, people see the marketing of the winners, right? Whenever people win at PLO, they're like, oh yeah, I won 1,000 buy-ins at PLO, the game's so soft, ha ha ha. And people hear that, right? They hear that the PLO game is soft, and people have big swings. I already told you it has 4 times as much variance, right? So you're going to have a lot of swings. And people hear that, and they think, oh, I need to go do that. So they start playing. And then they get into the game and they play it forever, and they are trapped because they have something embedded in their brain that tells them, I think that I can win a lot of money at this. Right? In reality, they need to be logical and realize, I have not studied PLO a lot. I have played no PLO. I should be starting, if I'm going to play PLO, at the tiniest stakes, 1 cent, 2 cent. Don't tell me less. Back in the day, so many people would play like 25-50 no limit and just walk right over to 25-50 PLO and go broke. Yeah, you want to know why? Because you need a much larger bankroll and they're bad at the game. So yeah, if you go do anything you're awful at and you don't have the adequate bankroll, you're going to lose all your money. It's like duh. But people don't think like that. They think, oh, PLO, let me go gamble. Lack of discipline, lack of self-control, and lack of logic is what ruins most people's lives. What is PLO? PLO is Pot Limit Omaha. It's a different game. In that game, you get 4 cards in your hand. Everything else is the same. You have to use 2 of your cards at the showdown. You have to use exactly 2 of the cards, and you can only bet the size of the pot. It's a gambly game because everyone always has something, right? When deep in a tournament and you have a big stack, do you change your gameplay? Well, no, you just play good, fundamentally sound, deep stack strategy. Definitely different than a cash game, though, that's for sure, right? Why would you presume that when there are payout implications, that it's the same as when there are no payout implications? It's very important, right? Good example of this is, say you're in a bubble scenario. Say you're at a final table, you have the big stack, there are 2 medium stacks, and 1 like 5 big blind stack. Say a 40 big blind stack raises, you call the big blind out of 100 big blinds, flop comes middle cards or low cards. This is a spot where you should often check with 100% of your range as the bigs from out of position, but if there are payout implications, you should actually lead with a lot of your range, like 60% of your range, because you have the nut advantage. Even without the range advantage, you have the nut advantage, and if you just go bet, or bet, jam by the river, your opponent has to fold almost everything because they really just cannot risk going broke before the 5 big blind stack, right? Even if they have like aces. Say it comes 7, 6, 4, and you just bet flop, bet turn, jam, river, and you do that with all your draws and all your nut hands that beat aces, your opponent just needs to fold, even if they know they win like 60 or 70% of the time on the river. So, yeah, it changes your play. because you're playing a different game. Payouts change the game substantially. All right, that's me it for today. Thanks to my baby Thomas for sleeping through the show. That way I did not have to tend to him. Is today Friday? Today might be Friday. No, it's Wednesday. Nowhere near Friday. Hope you all have a great Wednesday. Hope you have a great rest of the week. When you coach someone one-on-one, do you rely on the student's hand recreation, or do you create a curriculum? I think the idea of creating a curriculum for an individual person is not a good idea at all. I'll tell you what a lot of private coaches do is they have a handbook or a PowerPoint or something, and they present that to every single student the same every single time. And I think that is awful for the students because every single person is not the same, right? So I have found by far the most beneficial way to help students get good quickly and to fix their leaks is to have them provide hand examples. And you say they're recreations. You don't have to recreate it. Record it as you're playing. Go to jonathanlittlepoker.com/notes. I tell you exactly how to take notes at the table so you don't have to recreate anything. You just write it down while you're playing. You've been playing 1 cent, 2 cent. It's over a short sample size, but you've been making only $1 an hour. What would you suggest? $1 an hour is crushing it. What do you mean? 50 big blinds per hour? Am I doing the math right? You're winning all the money. 50 big blinds an hour, you'll be rich in like 6 months. Just make sure you move up appropriately and realize your win rate's going to go down. All right. That's it for today. Hope you all have a great, great rest of the week. Again, if you want to get in on my giveaway where I'm giving away 1% of my action and and Party Poker UK in Nottingham coming up, check out pokercoaching.com/giveaway to get access to pokercoaching.com/premium. Well, go to pokercoaching.com/premium and check it out. There is everything you need to know there to take your skills to the next level and allow you to make significant money from poker in the long term. Remember, there's variance in the game. Do your best to decrease the variance. Brian says, have I ever played with any big names? Yes, frequently. Who's the toughest player I ever played against? I don't even know. All the good players are good. If you play like a good GTO bot, you're probably pretty good. All right, have a great day. Enjoy yourselves, and I will see you again on Friday, most likely. My parents are coming to town, so there's a tiny chance I may not be here on Friday. But I should be here on Friday. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.